and today I'm going to talk to Bo DePaoli. So I talked to him before, but it was more about multifamily syndication, multifamily commercial real estate. Today, I wanted to bring him in for his expertise and highly successful running gyms, right? So I wanted him to share that expertise with people, and anybody who wants to reach out, they have gym business or thinking of gym business, he would be a great resource. So with that, kind of Bo, kind of give your background and what you did, even during COVID time, to run a successful gym franchises or gym businesses, not franchises, but businesses.
Yeah. Thanks for having me on. Really excited to talk to you again. It is hard to believe it's been a couple of years already, right?
Right.
Time flies when you're having
Yeah.
fun.
Right.
Yeah, I'm actually getting ready to celebrate my 10th year owning the gyms here in September is when I closed on them. When I bought them, they were they were a local brand that was failing. And so my idea was I'm going to go in, I'm going to rebrand them because it kind of got a bad name in the community. And so the brand was amazing. It was a beautiful brand, but I just felt like I should rebrand it to help with the consumer. Looking back, I don't know if I would have done that, but hindsight's 2020, right? I ended up buying into the World Gym franchise because I thought that would be a smart rebrand. I mean, World Gym was a well-known brand and franchise. So I was in the World Gym franchise for 5 years, ran it under World Gym. My franchise agreement was actually up December 31st of 2019, and I decided to not renew. A couple of reasons. One was they changed their franchise agreement, and I didn't want to continue with under those terms. And the other reason was World Gym is a phenomenal brand, but it's known as a very meathead brand in a way, if you want to use that word. And so that doesn't really work anymore. So I wanted to rebrand it into my own brand. So I branded it under Grit Fitness. And we reopened our doors, rebranded January 1 of 2020 as Grit Fitness. Yeah. And then literally like 9 weeks later, we were shut down with COVID. And we were shut down for about 10 weeks, which is not bad considering some of the other states, what they were doing to gyms. I have a lot of friends that own gyms across the US, and some of them were closed down for a year. Yeah, it was really, really tough for them. And so I was shut down for 10 weeks. We reopened in June, and June was like a new January for us. We had a bunch of signups that month because I think everyone was just like sick of being cooped up in their home. They wanted to get out. So we had a ton of signups in June, and then states started enforcing the mask policy. And then that started freaking everybody out. And so then we saw a dive in sales and an uptick in cancellations. And it's really taking probably a couple of years for us to get our rhythm back in terms of sales. And we're nowhere near what we were pre-COVID. I mean, we're working towards getting there, but we lost 30% of our business during COVID. And so we've just been working on trying to get it back and trying to get it revenue and profit back to where it was pre-COVID.
Gotcha. Awesome. So let's get into that stuff, right? You thrived, or at least survived fine during the COVID time. What are the top things you learned? Maybe 3, 5 things, whatever top things you learned or discovered during that process to pivot and adjust to whatever the environment that helped you at least, survive and do pretty well, from what I know, pretty well during that time.
We were very clean, that's for sure. We had to maintain our cleanliness to like Ritz-Carlton standard. So we had extra staff on board that all they were doing was cleaning throughout the day. They might have dual roles where they're working front desk, but if they weren't at the front desk and they're out there cleaning, we had more sanitation stations throughout the gym. We were required to enforce the masks. So we were doing the masks.
Mhm.
And honestly, we were just taking it day by day. I mean, that's all we could do. I mean, it was changing. I mean, Raj, it was changing literally like every day, every week, something different was going on, something new was going on.
Mhm.
So we had to become extremely adaptable during those times.
Mhm. Gotcha. Is there anything you want to like say more like, hey, these are the top 2, 3 things you discovered? Like, this is how these are the things that helped us survive. Is there anything worth mentioning other than, I know day to day, a lot of things, but maybe 2 or 3 things that I mean, what made you discover too? Like, kind of like what is the mindset involved that you kind of open up? This is not how we're supposed to now. This is the better way to do things. Kind of how that process worked for you. Maybe the process itself.
I think the biggest thing during that time was customer service. Everyone was on the edge with everything, right? And so we tried to provide the best customer service. We tried to make sure that everyone was abiding by the mandates, the state laws then at that time, in terms of mask wearing and social distancing and all of that stuff. It's really hard to say like one particular thing that or a few things that that we learned. I could tell you what I learned, but it's not politically correct.
Oh, okay. Yeah, we won't go into politics, I guess.
But I think customer service was one. I think the other thing was good marketing. Good marketing is huge. We tried to make our marketing a little bit more fun, especially during those times. The staff was great with doing more social media posting and making the social media posts fun, stuff like that. And then outside of that is just trying to provide a better product than some of the other competitors in the market. So some of our major competitors are like Planet Fitness, Anytime. The YMCA became a huge competitor for us because they got backed by a nonprofit fund, and they were getting just like handed millions of dollars to build these monstrosity facilities. So that was tough. But I think the biggest, I could tell you one thing that just came to mind that we learned is there's a niche for everybody, right? Your Planet Fitness members are not going to be my members and vice versa, right? Your Anytime members are not going to be my members. So there is a niche. There is a customer for everybody. You just have to make sure that you're appealing to that customer base, right? Especially in the fitness space now, because 10, really even 15, let's go back 15 years ago. You didn't have all these different brands, right? You didn't have, I mean, you had Planet, but they're nowhere near as monstrous as they are now. You didn't have Anytime as monstrous as they are now. You didn't have the YMCAs as big as they are now, at least in my community. You had very basic brands, and you didn't have all these boutiques, right? You didn't have Orange Theory, F45, Soul Cycle. I mean, now fitness is like Walgreens and CVS. There's one on every single corner nowadays, right? And so you have to build a brand that appeals to whatever customer segment that you're trying to attract towards.
That's a really great point. In that, what Bo said is wisdom for everybody, not even just the gym. I believe, because if anybody read Bo, I don't know if you read the Blue Ocean strategy, Blue Ocean, where you figure out your customer and cater to them instead of, like, for example, you go to network events, whatever, and you run into, let's say, an insurance broker or somebody, they'll say, oh, I do insurance. But that's not being specific, what type of insurance specific, right? Similar to that's, great point. You can have multiple gyms, but if you cater to a certain category, then those people obviously will look at yours. That's a great point for any business. So with that, let's go to, where you are. If I, basically I reached out to you because I saw you spreading the word about gyms, and seems like you've been helping gyms. So could you kind of share that part of your journey now? Like, how do you help gym owners if they want to get into, or people want to get into gym business? How could you help them, coach them, or, give them
Yeah.
a good business plan and all that stuff?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think that's actually one side of the business that I truly love is, figuring out what works, what doesn't work, and creating efficiencies and improving operations and all of that stuff.
Mhm.
So, one of the biggest things is if you're thinking about getting into the gym business, know your market. You have to run a demographic report on your market. You have to know how big is the population. You have to know what's the average household income. You have to know, you know, the spot that you're looking at possibly putting a gym, real estate wise,
Mhm.
you know, how many rooftops are around that spot? What's
Mhm.
the 5 to 10 minute drive time for that location? How many people are within a 5 to 10 minute drive of that location? 15 max, depending on
Mhm.
your what MSA you're in. But there's 3 C's to business that or to the gym business that
Mhm.
make them successful. It's convenience,
Mhm.
cleanliness, and cost in that order. So
Mhm.
people want to be close to a gym. They
Mhm.
want to be as close to the gym as possible because people are busy, they're
Right.
working, they got to take Johnny to soccer, they got to take Cindy to gymnastics practice.
Mhm.
So they want something that is convenient for them in their schedule, close to home, that they can get in, get out, and do their thing. That's why convenience is number one.
Mhm.
That's what's made Anytime successful is because they have so many locations that you can use 24 hours throughout the United States, right?
Right.
Planet is kind of the same way. And then cleanliness, I think that's probably we just did a big renovation last year at my one club,
Mhm.
and I would think that was probably one of the biggest complaints
Mhm.
of the gym was the uncleanliness. We thought it was clean based on our standards,
Mhm.
but the consumer didn't think it was clean.
Mhm.
So cleanliness is huge
Mhm.
for a gym,
Mhm.
and then cost. That's the last factor when you're looking at a gym is what's the cost, because again you have planets that are $10 a month,
Mhm.
and you can go right down the road and there's an Equinox that's $200 a month,
Mhm.
and both facilities are filled to the brim with members, right?
Right.
But that goes back to what I stated earlier. There's a customer for everybody,
Mhm.
right? Equinox has their customers. Planet has their customers. That's why you see gyms near each other, is because of the convenience factor. And
Mhm.
then you've got to keep it clean, right? Run a tight operation with cleanliness and all of that stuff. I mean, obviously there's a little other things that trickle in there, but I think those are the 3 main things.
Mhm.
Operational, and then the demographic is huge. I mean, when I was looking at scaling the gyms, I would look at, what's the population density within a 5 to 10 minute drive time or a 3 to 5 mile radius of that facility?
Mhm.
What's the average household income percent of that? And that is the number of potential gym membership consumers that you will attract in that region. So if
Mhm.
you've got 100,000 people in, a let's say a 10-minute drive time,
Mhm.
20,000 of those people are going to be interested in a gym membership. And then you got to divvy up that 20,000 amongst all the competitors in that same circle.
Mhm. Gotcha.
And so you've got to figure out, well, how much am I going to be able to attract of that 20,000? Planets, they take 8 to 10,000 right off the bat.
Mhm.
Um, Anytimes you're going to take 1,000 to 2,000, right? And then you got all your boutiques in there. So you just got to keep chopping away. Can you attract some of those customers at Anytime and Planet to come to you? Sure, but it's not, at least initially, it's not going to be the majority, right? It's going to be a small percentage.
Mhm.
But again, what is your product and who are you trying to attract? I think a good example is, if you're familiar, down in Texas is Alpha Elite is a gym down there.
Mhm.
It's a huge weightlifting gym that's just like, it's dark but it's cool, right? It's real sexy. It's
Mhm.
very like, everyone's got their tripod set up, everybody's doing their videos of each other lifting, but the place is packed,
Right.
right?
Mhm.
And that's where I'm going with, like, what's your model? What's your business model that you're trying to, what consumer are you trying to attract?
That's awesome. Yeah, those were great rules. I was actually going to ask, hey, what your rules and what your steps? You kind of already went through that. That's, probably if you're a gym owner or want to be in gym, probably listen to that again. That way you get good, content and knowledge base to work off. So with that being said, before we jump into other businesses you're involved in, last question on the business side is, when you consult with businesses or they come in to consult, pretty much that's what you try to, is that what you try to figure out? Obviously, demographics, all that stuff, but trying to figure out their niche. What should they be concentrating? Is that something that's what you help them with, essentially, or what other?
Yeah. I think a big thing for me is cash flow. I like to see a cash flow projection
Mhm.
so I can understand the ins and outs of the business and what the business is doing,
Mhm.
where's the business headed, and we will create a cash flow spreadsheet.
Mm.
We'll project out from today's date. Usually I like to go through the rest of the year or try and project out a year. So all of my businesses, I'm projecting out the full year.
Mm.
So in November, we start working on the next year's cash flow projection, which is
Gotcha.
also acting as a budget too, right? We need to know where we're at on a cash position every week,
Mhm.
day in and day out, so that we can, because things always come up that you're not going to expect, right? So you have to be able to know if you can account for that,
Mm.
and then also know where the cash is going and where you can start trimming some fat or where you think you can improve revenue.
Mhm.
I think that is a big thing next for me, next to the demographic and what the business is doing.
Gotcha.
I'm a
Awesome.
huge numbers guy, so
Good.
you got to really know your numbers. I mean, that any business owner, you need to know your numbers.
There you go. No, that's a great segue into the next topic is basically, the last time we talked mostly about, commercial real estate, multifamily syndication. So in that, kind of share what you do there and who should connect you in that world, essentially. What do you look for? So on and so forth.
Yeah. So my one business, D3 Capital, we're focused mostly on multifamily properties,
Mhm.
which has kind of gone into a transition, I would guess you could say, over the last few years. With the rates as low as they were, prices got hyperinflated,
Right.
and it's been hard to find a good deal.
Right.
So, we're just trying to find deals, and we're trying to raise capital to go after the deals that we do find.
Mhm.
That's the two big things behind D3 Capital. We're looking mostly in the Midwest, somewhat of the Sun Belt region, the Carolinas, Georgia, Florida, Texas, a little bit. But I think that those prices in those states are still kind of inflated. It's hard to even get into those markets now because insurance has gone through the roof in those two states, and taxes in Texas are escalating very fast.
Mhm. Yeah, that is very true. There's someone, a mutual friend, we talked about. Yeah, he shared that projection even before everything went off the roof, and that's why, he was concerned. Great. All right. So let's get into last three questions. Well, anything else you want to share, by the way? Any other business info or people you're looking for, type of people you're looking for, anything like that you want to share before I ask my last questions?
It's funny you say that because are you familiar with the book Who Not How?
Yeah. Yes.
That's kind of like the direction I'm trying to go with the business is putting the right people on the bus,
Mm.
hiring the right people on the bus because I'm doing so much now, right? I've got four, soon to be five different businesses that I'm operating. I'm doing a podcast. I'm doing, you name it, I'm doing it. And so I need to find the right people to drive the company in the direction that I'm trying to take it. So I think that that is a huge component for any business owner is most entrepreneurs that get into business, they are operating the business themselves, right? But your goal should be you need to be at the 30,000 foot level and you need to find somebody to run the business for you. You should be working on the business, not in the business. And so that's kind of the route that I've been trying to go the last several months is hiring key people to run some of these businesses that I own. I'll take the gym as an example, right? I'm not running the gym as efficiently as I should be. I know that.
Mhm.
I need to find somebody that can run it better than what I can. And I'm not running it good because I'm just doing too many things at once.
Mhm.
So that's some good piece of advice too. Don't do too many things at once if you're an entrepreneur. Stick to one thing and do it very well.
Mhm.
Um, so I think that's a big thing is, having the right people on the bus and not trying to do too much at once.
Mhm.
I need
Gotcha.
to listen to my advice, Raj.
Gotcha. Right. Well, with that, we'll go into the last three questions. What's the best? I mean, you kind of mentioned Who Not How, which is one of my favorite books too. But beyond that, is there a book which is your favorite book other than religious? Obviously, if you're religious, you'll have your Bible or whatever, your religious book, obviously, number one. Beyond that, kind of in the any realm, what is your favorite book so far that you would recommend people reading?
Principles by Ray Dalio. I absolutely love that book. I read that book. I want to say that came out shortly after I bought the gyms. No, maybe a few years after I bought the gyms. Anyways, I think that is a phenomenal book because Ray was extremely vulnerable in that book and showed how his mistakes, his arrogance, his ego is what got him in the way of growing his own business because he thought he knew better.
Mhm.
And so he surrounded himself with people that were smarter than him to help him grow the business to where it is now. And now, Bridgewater, which Ray Dalio owns, is the largest privately held hedge fund in the world.
Mhm.
And he did that by being he created a culture where everyone was extremely blunt, if you will, with him or each other and always trying to improve.
Mhm.
And so I think he calls it an idea meritocracy
Mhm.
where the best idea wins.
Mhm.
I think that's great. And that's something that I have to strive for in my business.
Mhm.
Um, I think it's hard because my face is not very approachable. So I think a lot of my employees feel that they can't come to me and tell me, Bo, you're wrong. You need to do this. But that's what I want, right? I'm going to push back, right? It should be an open dialogue, and we should be able to chat about it
Right.
and see who's got the best idea, right? But I think that's huge. I think you need to like set your ego aside, and I think you need to be able to learn from the people around you that are in the trenches and know what's going on day in and day out, you know?
Yeah, no, that's a great one. Yeah, maybe cut off the beard and look less like a Viking, man. That you're trying to kill them or something, so they'll come to you. All right. So the next question is obviously it seems like, from last time, I know you were pretty good, but this time I feel like you have more excitement. At least I can feel that. So what is, what excites you every day to get up and do what you do every day now these days?
I just love what I do. I love like fixing things. I love making things better and more efficient. I love where the business is going and the opportunities that are ahead of me. I just started a podcast. I'm really excited about that. I should have started that,
Mhm.
back when we first talked, a few years ago. I should have started that. I'm excited about that because it puts me in front of people like yourself and other like-minded individuals that I can learn from. Like today, I just filmed 2 podcasts, and the one I was like, man, I learned so much from here. I was very curious. I was asking a lot of questions. He was a CPA, and so he was very knowledgeable in tax structure and all of that stuff. So I was super excited about that. This is the other one I did. The guy was in short-term rentals. He's young. He was a teacher and just kind of fell into his lap, the short-term rental thing. And now he's not a teacher and he's doing that full time. So it's just like meeting people like that and then figuring out how to constantly improve the business. It really excites me.
No, that's a great one. By the way, any chance that's Michael Ketchum?
No, it's not.
Okay, yeah, he's also sort of, but I'll introduce you both. He's amazing, awesome. He coaches people, great guy to talk to. But
Yeah, I
anyway,
would love.
yeah, I'll do the intro. He might be a great one for your podcast. Well, the last question, uh, I mean, you shared a different tip at that time. Now I don't remember the tip, but what's the best, maybe the recent one, the tip you learned that could help others?
I actually talked about this recently. Whatever you do, if you're trying to get into business for yourself, whatever you do not go into a business undercapitalized.
Mm-hmm.
Know your business, do your due diligence, and understand what it's going to take to run that business. But the biggest thing is do not go in undercapitalized. That's what I did. I struggled very, very much for a lot of years. And I mean, I still struggle. Every business owner struggles. It's not rainbows and sunshines day in and day out, right? But I think that's the biggest piece of advice I can give is be very well capitalized in whatever you're doing and really know the business and do your due diligence with the business.
Awesome. That's a great tip. Yeah, no, that actually reminds me of something based on what the conversation we had before. We won't get into the podcast, but that's a separate conversation. All right. Awesome, Bo. Thanks for taking the time again. And I'll be getting all the contact information for Bo. So if you want to know more about gym business, want to get consultation with him, or basically in the real estate world, you want to contact him, you can contact him through that. And obviously his podcast info also I'll post, so you can go listen to his podcast. So again, Bo, thanks for taking the time.
Yeah, thank you.